welcome everybody to episode 4 of WERA Highlights. Today is going to be a little bit of a shorter episode as we only have 3 races to report on, as GT3 ended last week. And so we're going to start off with Rare talking about GT3.
Alright, last race, which was on Hockenheim for GT3 last race, as mentioned, we do not have any footage of what happened, but we do know the standings of that same race. So, Runaway Drive getting his first win of the season, especially on the last race for Season 4. Gene getting second with fastest lap, and Danny getting third, and then DemonAgera getting fourth. Everyone else did not attend the race, so there was in total only 4 racers during that. Matt actually had quite enough points to stay into third, 1 point away from Runaway Drive. If Runaway Drive actually had, if he had gotten the fastest lap, which could have, anything's possible, you know, he would have gotten third from Matt. And then Gene gets first in standings, Danny is third. Gene actually gets number 1, or is on pole for every race. And then Danny's second, like I said. Matt's still in third for Drivers' Championship, Runaway Drive. Then you have Aston, DemonAgera, me who didn't race for, who actually raced for only 2 races due to actually being available during that. And then Mid-Hunt, Ankla, Ben Luxa 2J for the GT3 Championship.
Alright, moving on to the GTE race last week. Kai will be presenting it.
Yep. So regarding that last week's GTE race, during qualifying, Lawsman stopped on track, which caused him to get disqualification from qualifying only. It's technically put him last place on the grid for the startup. In the end, it did work well for him because he ended up in first place with the fastest lap of the race. The Corvettes from Schaffer both DNF due to complications with roadblocks and the concert regarding the time. Oni received a 5-second time penalty instead of a drive-through penalty at the end of the race. It was the penalty was added on the last lap. A 15-second time penalty. My bad about that. But placed him in last position, and then Jamberg took his spot. Regarding the race results for that particular race, Lawsman won, as mentioned before, taking the fastest lap. Danny came home in second place, followed by Shelby, and then Gene, so that rounded off the podium in 4th position. Wide took 5th place, followed by Jamberger and Onisan, and then the last of the finishers was Heaven's Flame, taking 4 points for Hoshi.
Alright, now moving on to yesterday's race, or this weekend's race. We have GTE once again, this time on Sebring, one of the most unforgiving tracks in PT. This was by far one of the most eventful races we've had in a while. Really a lot of crashes, and it was really intense. It was really hard to tell who was going to win during that. So first off, going by the standing of Danny in first, Fat in second, and Shelby in third. This race was really intense. We had about 4 DCs, 3 of which were due to crashes, one of which was sadly, once again, Oni-san, serial disconnector. Who,
that feels so bad for Oni. How many times will this is? I don't know how long this is going to continue, but like,
about the 5th
Jesus
time
Christ, Jesus Christ, the really 5th time he disconnected from the race, and yeah, it's hard to see. The software is really kicking in on him. Like, Jesus Christ.
It is a shame for Oni to disconnect so much, honestly.
Yeah.
One of the best. One of the best drivers.
Very
like
solid.
in PT as a whole. In PT as a whole, one of the best drivers. Yet, so tough for him.
It really is, and I mean, if it wasn't for his constant disconnecting, he'd probably be up there in the podium. Really can't tell how high he would be getting. Maybe he would be always first. We never know. He hasn't really had the chance to unlock his potential during those races. As I mean,
Yeah, we talked
again,
about this like
it's
last
disconnected.
episode too. We talked
Yeah.
about this last episode too. It's a common reoccurrence with Oni-san and his disconnections.
Yeah, it really is, and I mean, hopefully next season, he'll have it fixed if he even participates next seasons. I don't know, maybe he'll retire, who knows? It's really up in the air right now. But going back to the three others, the Relator, TG, and LolZ-Man all crashed, all had either several crashes or one big determining crash, which did make them quit the race. And whilst Jam was about a lap behind due to several crashes, he still kept going, and I mean, it proved to pay off.
Yeah, a lap and a half for being exact, because the time gap was ridiculous.
And I mean, good on him for actually continuing, because he did end up with 1 point rather than nothing.
And yeah, 1 point's always solid than 0, so it always works.
And I mean, kind of sad to see the others quitting out like that, although, I mean, it did really show who was determined to keep going and who wasn't. I mean, Sebring is really a discouraging track.
One
it's
of
really
the toughest, if not the toughest, in PT.
Yeah. Also want to mention the fight for that Roblox Pekin had between for P8. It was a really intense fight that he had with the other Corvette, yellow Corvette, and it was really intense between him and Heaven's Flame. Heaven's Flame having originally started from the back of the grid due to him stopping midway during qualifications on the track, and it was really intense. Roblox had a bit of an advance for a while, and then out of nowhere came Heaven's Flame and just passed him, where Roblox was nearly at 40 cc's, and what really was the nail in the coffin for him was when he did finally get 40 cc's and went to go through pits. If he had he not crashed at the pits, he might have had a chance to catch back up, but it really
crashed in the pits.
Yeah,
Oh, that's
well, entering the
ridiculous.
pits, he hit the wall, and it really was
Like the entry, the entry point where it
Yeah,
splits
yeah.
off. He
Not only
crashed in the middle of that. That doesn't feel good, especially
Yeah.
when there's real life situations where that happened. You know what's gonna happen then. So
Yeah, not only are those pits the longest pits in PT, but yeah, just crashing there, it's over. Although he did end up squeaking past Jam, who really did catch up to him, was very, very close.
Jam caught up in the end, although he was a lap down.
Yeah,
Okay.
I'm pretty sure he did end up crashing once again, while Spiken just held his
So basically, in a fair offense, he was catching, but then he lost it, and then yeah, fell back to where he was.
Yeah,
So.
basically.
Okay.
And of course, Heaven's Flame squeaking out with P8. As said
Well.
during the race, Roblox may have been P9, but he'll be P8 in our hearts.
Yep.
Yeah.
Anyway, regarding the rest of the race results, Fate, Mauricio, and Wyatt all finished pretty close up the road, split maybe 10 seconds from each other.
Yeah. Gotta say, I'm surprised there's not two Pro Drive drivers in the podium this time. It's actually more diverse. Danny for Pro Drive, and then Fat Boy and Shelby. Fat Boy being, I believe, Emerald Overdrive, and Shelby for Roush. So at least it's a bit more diverse of a podium. We don't get to see that so often. And it's
Yeah, normally we just see ProDrive. Yeah, we just normally see ProDrive taking top steps, 1-2s every single place, at least once on the podium. I mean, it's obvious we're gonna have at least one ProDrive driver, but the diversity is very well appreciated.
Although we are seeing more diversity than we have in the past season, so that might mean teams are creeping up.
Yeah, either that or other teams are like working behind the scenes to snatch drivers from ProDrive. You never know, because the more competitive drivers that split between the teams, the better it might be for competition.
Exactly, and I'm also gonna go ahead and mention WERA Ultimate Season 1, aka Season 5, where they're really interested to see how Schaffer's gonna do, especially with Aston being like one of the top drivers for GT4 driving, being a really experienced driver with GT4. Pull off some miracles.
Yeah, he pulled off a miracle to win the championship last season, doing what he does best, driving consistently with what we can pretty much say a pretty chaotic finale for that regard in IGT4. But yeah, that. I'm interested to see how we move on with the super season, considering WERA and IGT4 teaming up.
It's gonna be pretty tight, honestly, with GT4 being, I'd like to say, much more competitive scene than GTE, as ProDrive's already mastered GTE, although they haven't quite mastered the GT4. Really, the real master of GT4 right now I see is more Schaffer, I'd say.
Yeah, the thing is GT4 is so widespread. It's so much easier to make mistakes. It allows a lot more. It allows a lot more competition between each of them. So yeah, I'm really interested to see how this turns out. And I want to see how Schaffer takes part, how ProDrive takes part. Let's see how they respond to the challenge that Schaffer puts up, and anyone else who can challenge for surprise podiums, surprise wins, big points hauls, all of that.
And I mean, regarding how GT4's very accessible cars, I mean, they're quote unquote forgiving in the term that they don't spin out, but that really leaves much more of a competitive scene because it's that accessible. Anyone can drive a GT4 without necessarily spinning out, so that makes it really much more accessible and easier for people to learn how to be good at it. But it's really those.
I mean, it's a bit more prone to mistakes. It depends on how your driving style, how you attack corners, and because these GT4 cars are understeery as hell. You can one move on the grass and you're pretty much done. And considering their tire wear levels as well, it's all these minor things. Yeah, QB, you want to say something about that?
Yeah, considering that they are actually, I'd say, the most punishing out of all three classes. LMP or is LMP even a thing now? I don't see that many people racing LMP.
A lot of
LMP is
leagues aren't doing so well when they do LMP. It's quite unfortunate.
I've never actually seen a dedicated league that sets itself apart for LMP or does a dedicated season. It's
give or take for LMP. It's really 50-50.
There really isn't that many people.
There's not enough content. Yeah, there's not enough content for LMP. And I mean, with those cars, you can take back. You do spin out much more than GT4, although you can't take off as quickly with the GT4. If you mess up with the GT4, that thing's taking off like a brick, whilst if you mess up with an LMP, that thing will be a rocket.
Either way, with the LMP, slow start, fast start, you still take off as a rocket. If you take off with the GT4, you're considered stuck on the grid rather than moving, because we've seen moments where drivers just stick on the grid and everyone else goes on. You either get it right or you get it wrong in a GT4 car.
It's like a plane and a car. If you crash in a plane, you can't take back off with that plane. If you crash in a car, maybe you can take back off.
Oh yeah,
Right,
one's
like
in the
a
sky,
plane.
one's in the one's on
Yeah,
the ground, one's in the sky. There's there's a massive difference there.
I mean, with GT4, you can always be soaring, but once you crash, you're never taking back off again. But yeah,
Yeah.
it's really gonna be a pretty difficult season for everyone. But it's gonna be very tight. I feel it's gonna be much more packed, and yeah, we're gonna have much more drivers, and it's gonna be really interesting to see that. Thank you for coming to episode 4 of WERA Highlights. Hope you enjoyed, and we'll see you next time with the next highlight being probably the shortest. We're going to be doing most of a recap of the entire GTE season, just doing an overview.